Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Monday. It's July 25th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and you can see it's still just another. This was an inside day, uh, basically a range type band. And we're looking at the daily chart with the envelope bands on here, and you can see we just were really stuck between the two bands there, and closed kind of as a neutral doji type day, meaning there's no direction and no bias really in the end, and very similar to the previous day. And these are, so this was totally inside the previous day's trading. So definitely a range day. And when we go over to the other chart, it looks like a range day. So, I mean, maybe prices still want to come up here, but we really had trouble getting going much higher here. I would think we're going to at least come back and test this, even if we were to make another run up and then come down. We'll just have to see, but most likely the path of least resistance is going to be to the downside. That's just looking at the chart. So, but anyway, let's flip over to the 2,000 tick chart and look at it and go through the trade. And you can see here, this was the overnight highs and the overnight lows, and we traded within that most of the day. And most of that was in the lower half, so kind of a more of a, somewhat of a more bearish type day. We didn't make any consistent lows here. We didn't make any consistent highs for the most part. So you either had to trade the small ranges or congestion, or trade the small trends. And so not a lot of trades today. There's a few in here. There's more than enough to get what you need. And there were some early morning trades, not much in the middle of the day, and then there were some afternoon trades. So um, let's zoom in, go through the trades, and we'll wrap this day up. Shouldn't take long because there's not many trades today. It's just one of those days. So, but you can see 7 o'clock came just as we're kind of bouncing off this low here, and you can see prices weren't getting rejected there. They were just kind of hanging around. But notice how you notice that technically this is a third entry long. Notice your high here, and you tried to go higher once, and then twice, and then three times. But really, it looks like a leg up, and then we tried to correct, and then we tried to go higher again, and then turn down. So it's somewhat of a failed second entry. It as long as you got room down here to these lows and back to the EMA, you might consider that trade. I marked it green. It's not an ideal trade, but it's something you could consider. Because this is you can see this, we got a break and a new high, so it's definitely played out. This is a really clear leg down, so we'll probably get another leg down at least. And you know, you would want to look for a measured leg there, like so. And you can see we pretty much got that there. Then it tried to bounce and failed and went lower. But you've got a double top here, and so you come down, and this is almost a perfect repeat pattern. You got a little tick up, and then a second tick up, but the so it is a failed second entry long. And again, you just need room to kind of get out before these last lows in here. If you got that, you may take that. And if you take this trade, you probably get a runner out of this one. That may be all you need today. The rest of this is you're just too far away from the EMA now to trust an entry. Um, and of course, you come down here and you get the break, and you would think that prices would try to retest those lows, but they don't. They do, but it takes a long time. So we kind of get hung up in this sideways stuff here, and prices just, like I said, just no direction today. So, but you're working up. You get a close outside on this green new high, and it looks like we may go lower, and we never do. So then we're bouncing back up here again and back, and then finally, you're kind of going sideways, and you get a breakout and then a lower high here. And this is a failed second entry long as well. Notice it goes higher once and it turns down and then goes back up in the same bar. And so it's a failed second entry long. Um, and we've been kind of working sideways here. So you'd say prices may come back down to here. You probably want to think about back to the EMA right there. We'll probably at least get back to the midline here. But I like that trade just as a lower high. on a failed second entry long. It's kind of a repeat pattern. We saw it a couple of times there. And then we're just kind of working along here. Again, this, you might even say this is a failed second entry long as well. Technically, we don't make a new high here. That's the problem with that one. But when you get the third touch, now you got a triple test and a bearish bar. As long as you got room down here, these lows, I'd be all right with that trade. It ends up going much further. And then you bottom out down here. This is a second entry long. You got a new high here. So first entry, second entry, and that's a fairly nice bullish bar. The problem is you could push lower again. You just don't know what's going to happen there, but the odds are you'll probably snap back. Maybe you want to take that one because it's a failed break lower. The problem is it should have bounced here thinking this was a range, but it doesn't. You can see it does go a perfect measured move though, and then bounces. And then you make a new high here. You get a first entry, second entry, right off the key entry point. There's another failure in there too. Of course, you're not necessarily looking for second entries and failures, but you do get this high or low right off the support area. And I mean, how often do you get a 5-tick bar these days? Or actually 7 ticks. Somewhere in here we get a 5-tick bar. I don't remember where it's at, but that one's 7. I mean, how often do you get a 7-tick bar these days? Not very often. And then we're just kind of working sideways here. This one's tempting, but you don't have much room there. And we didn't really get back to the high, and we're just kind of chopping sideways. So this could go either direction. You just can't risk that one. It does drop on down, and you actually get a first entry. There's a second entry short right there. I didn't mark that one because it didn't break higher. It just looks like congestion. There is enough room down here to these lows, so it's another one. You know, if you wanted to say, hey, I want to be a little aggressive here, maybe you take that trade. It's not the kind of aggressive trade where you really expect to get a big move out of, so I really don't recommend it. You just never know. But it's not at a spot where you're probably going to make an important low or high for the day, and you might get a huge move off of it. So to me, it's not worth taking. Then we turn up, get a close outside, and again, I don't see reason here that anything would make me want to go long here. This one's tempting, but it's only like a double test. You don't get that triple test, and you can see it quickly fails and turns down. And again, you might say, hey, there's a failed second entry long there, but that bar is so big, I think you have to wait for this bar to close, and by the time it closes, it's right down here at the lows. So I don't think you want to risk going long, short there either. So, and then we come down here and we find the support at the overnight, but we don't get a really good setup. We don't really get rejection. It turns up, and you can see how weakly it's going. It's moving along here, but then you get a first entry, and this actually breaks higher and turns down. So that's a second entry short right there. After we've already got a break and new high, so there's a good chance we're going to retest these lows again. So maybe you take that. I don't know if I'd take that on the engulfing bar, but if you waited for this bar to close, it still probably closes in the lower 1/3. But I'm not as crazy about it then. So if you didn't enter on the engulfing bar, being a little more aggressive, I don't know that I'd take that trade. So it's just one to think about. We drop on down and we do bounce higher here, but I think you need a higher low, and you just don't get it. I mean, you can't enter in this congestion right here. Notice 1, 2, 3, 4 bars are all side by side. This one doesn't have a body. That one doesn't have much of one. And you can see it just doesn't go anywhere until finally it breaks out the bottom, fails, and then runs up. And what you get here is just a measured move up for the most part. This really should be here. And you actually get a little more in the measured move up. And then it just starts working sideways. And we do have this, I didn't color it here, let's color this back. We do get this second leg up, and it just starts working sideways, and we don't we actually do get a new high here, but because it's just working sideways, you can trade this as a range. And notice you get you try to test it once. Really, I would just say this is all one test in here because it doesn't really go anywhere. It's just kind of sideways. You might say there's multiple tests, but you finally get a good test here, and it makes a double bottom, so you could call that a high or low, and you got plenty of room to scalp out. So I like. It's not a perfect setup, but it's one you might consider. It meets our entry criteria, and then you fell out the top, you fell out the bottom, you're back in, and eventually it goes lower, but there's no setup there I really like. This is an inside bar, a doji, and you got you got multiple ones they're really sideways. So I don't think this is really your signal bar, and you definitely can't use it. So, and it drops on down, bounces, and notice you do get a close outside the new low here. So uh, there's probably a shorter term trend line in here too, but this kind of works up. Um, I don't see anything here I like to go long. You could say there's a failure here, but look at that sideways. I just think it's too risky to go long there. It turns out to be a nice move, but you just can't risk that. And then we're just chopping sideways again. That's the way this thing does. It goes one direction, goes sideways, goes in another direction. I don't see anything in here I like. This is something you might consider a short on. Only problem is you got those three bars kind of side by side, and this one's got no body. Yeah, you do have your break and a new high. So it's one you could say, hey, maybe I want to be risky on that one. Same thing, you drop down here. Um, I don't think you can argue. I think this is just uh, sideways stuff. And you could say, hey, we're bouncing off the lows, but you made a new low here. And so you got to wait on a higher low, which comes here. And then you just don't have much room there. And so I don't think I take that one either. And I don't see anything in there that really I think it's worth risking. This turns out to be a nice move, but it's not worth risking it there on that inside bar. Plus, technically, that's your signal bar because it doesn't quite make the higher high there, or equal high there. We drop down here. Notice we make that low. We try to go lower once, and then you figure we'd try to push on down here. It's too sideways, so you can't really go short. But when you get that trap right there, it's a second entry long and it's a failed second entry short, and we're overdue to come back to the EMA. So as long as you got room back there, I like that trade. It's a little aggressive, but it's one you might consider. This runs on up, you get a little overshoot, you get a break, go sideways, and again here you got another breakout here, but it makes a new high. And those are always risky. It is a second entry short. It is a little ways from the EMA. It's one you could argue to be green, but there's just a big chance you make one more push up and get stopped out, only because we really didn't make a new high here either. But you could argue that's an overshoot. So it's not a strong overshoot. So that's the other problem. But you may still take that trade. This turns out to be a great move, but you just don't really get another opportunity to enter it all the way down until you get the break here. And you actually get two legs back here. You could treat that like a second entry short. I like that trade. The problem is I marked this one anyway, but it doesn't break lower till here. And that's an inside bar, and that makes it kind of iffy. But that's a pretty good move down, and you don't have a new low yet. So maybe you take that trade. I really should have marked that green. Let's just change it. Because of the inside bar, they're just not very reliable, and you can get tripped up on that. But it's not very long before you get a triple test, and I think maybe that's the 5 tick. Yeah, 5 ticks in that bar. And so triple test, boom, there's your chance to go short. And this is a pretty nice move here. And if this would have broke higher, you could maybe look at that as a lower high, but it's just an inside bar again. and then we're just kind of chopping sideways down here. You do get a little failed break lower, but, and again, it's what, 7 ticks. Odds are it's going to bounce back, but it makes a new low here on a breakout, and you can see it closes below that support resistance line, the former support line. So it's a little risky. Again, it's another one you might say, hey, let's, I'm willing to risk that one because that could turn out to be an important low. It doesn't. You get an easy scalp where it goes right back where you thought. Then you get a triple test up here off the highs. So as long as you got room back down, take that one, and that turns out to be the better entry. Either one of them would have worked, but this is the safer one. It's with the trend. It's a triple test. I mean, even if you bounce here, you should have enough. Just make sure you got enough room. That's the key. But it doesn't really matter, and then it just drops on down. Then we bounce, and then we're kind of stuck between the support or the former resistance or former support that's acting as resistance and a new little support area here. But we do get a triple test, but it's right into those highs, and you got this resistance right above it now. So I just don't think you can take that. You run over here, you get a close outside and a new high, but there's not much room there. It would have worked, but that late in the day, just don't risk it. So there it is. Again, pretty good morning till about 9:30, and then there's just not much at all in there until late this afternoon. So it's just a lot of mixed trading, no consistent support or resistance. It's one of those range days that are just difficult to trade because even with your trends, you don't get a lot of setups. So I hate these kind of days. I mean, a lot of people do not like range days. I'll be honest with you. If it's a consistent range where prices consistently turn down here every time and they touch it multiple times, and then it turns down off the highs every time and it touches it multiple times, those days are so predictable and they're easy, especially if you get good setups off of the support and resistance. So we do get days like that. But lately we just get these mixed trading days that are just prices run in one direction, turn and run in the next. Turn and run right back up, then turn and run right back down, and they don't turn at consistent locations. It just makes it very hard. And really what's going on is there's just no market direction. There's no consistent support or resistance, and that makes it really hard to trade. So if you had a hard day today, don't beat yourself up. It was a hard trading day for anybody. Even a skilled trader would have a tough day today because there's not many trades. I mean, when you got to sit from 9:30 until 1:30, and anything you did take was probably too risky, well, then that makes it hard trading. So there's not much you can do about it. There are days like this, and then tomorrow we might get 25 easy trades. You just have to take it as the market gives it to you. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. Not much else we can say about today. We'll be back again tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.